Welcome to the video about corporate taxation in United Arab Emirates. As you know, in 2023, UAE has introduced a corporate income tax. However, this doesn't affect most of the businesses that are actually happening within UAE. So, let's go to the basics. Who should register for corporate income tax? Basically, all the businesses that are doing business within UAE. So, companies, whether these are free zones or LLCs, offshore companies, branches of foreign companies, companies that are doing business abroad having permanent establishment within UAE, and also individuals when they perform taxable activity, for example, individual entrepreneurs. So guys, from which date the corporate tax in UAE is applicable? This date is 1st of June 2023. So if you have a company in UAE that was doing business before that date, any income until 1st of June 2023 is free from any taxation. Now, from 1st of June 2023 onwards, we are liable for corporation tax. The basic rate of corporation tax is 9%. However, most of the businesses that are actually happening within UAE are exempt from tax. Which businesses are exempt from corporate income tax in UAE? First of all, holding companies of any capacity, whether it's a mainland LLC or a free zone companies. All holding activity and related activity is exempt from tax. So if the company in UAE receives dividend, this is tax-free still. If the UAE company disposes the shares, so let's say it sells a subsidiary or it sells stocks, this activity is also tax-free. So UAE is still one of the best jurisdictions for registration and maintenance of holding companies in the world. Let's continue the topic of exemptions from corporation tax. So as I mentioned, any holding activity, receiving dividends, receiving any other passive income, selling the shares of the subsidiary, this is tax-free. So for mainland companies, for the LLCs, which are registered locally here within UAE, except the holding activities, as I mentioned, getting dividends, selling the subsidiaries, most of the activities are not exempt from corporation tax. So a mainland LLC is subject to 9% of corporation tax on the profits. However, there is a very big threshold after which you have to pay the corporation tax, and this threshold is 375,000 dirhams, which is approximately $100 of profit. So even if you reach the threshold of 375,000 dirhams, which is $100,000, you pay 9%, which is still one of the lowest corporate income tax rates in UAE, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't hurt anyone that is coming from US or mainland Europe or Scandinavia, where it's standard that we pay taxes of 20, 30, even 40% on the corporate level. So 9% is nothing, and it's actually worth paying this 9% because we contribute to the economy and to the great infrastructure that is here. Now let's discuss a small business relief. This is something that was introduced by UAE government to still attract people having local businesses and not to scare people to leave UAE after the taxation was introduced. So small business relief, as in the other countries, works in the way that you are exempt from tax for a certain amount of time. Here in UAE, you can be exempted from corporate income tax until the period of 31st December 2026, assuming you did not reach an income of 3 million United Arab Emirates dirhams per year. So actually, the threshold that we have mentioned before, 375,000 dirhams, it can be higher depending on the circumstances, and small business relief doesn't apply to everyone, so it's case by case. So if you guys need an advice of if you can apply small business relief and how to apply it, feel free to contact us. Now let's go to business done by individuals. We had another video related to personal taxation and changing the tax residency to UAE. In this video, I have mentioned that there is zero tax on the personal level, which is obviously true. So salaries, dividends, investment, real estate income that you receive as a physical person being a resident of UAE is indeed tax-free. However, there is a concept of individual entrepreneurship in the UAE, like in other parts of the world, And if you are an individual entrepreneur and you do business, for example, consulting, you sell real estate and you get commission, or you do trading and you decided to do this as individual because you didn't want to set up a company or for whatever reason. So in this case, you are exempt from paying corporate income tax before you achieve 1 million dirham of income. Now let's touch the topic of free zones and the exemptions that are located in the free zones. So as you know, there are plenty of free economic zones within UAE. One of the most popular is Ras Al Khaimah, Ajman, Sharjah, Jebel Ali, and there are plenty of other ones. And each free zones might serve different purpose. They might have different facilities, usually related to trading companies or to manufacturing. And until 2023, all the activities of the free zones were exempt from taxation because, strictly speaking, there was no corporate tax in UAE. Now all the companies, including free zone companies, has to register to corporate tax, and most of the activities are taxable. So which activities are being exempt in the companies registered in the free zones? First of all, holding companies. Even if the holding company is registered in a free zone, then we can have the benefit of no taxation of the sale of subsidiary or no taxation of receiving dividends. So the holding company concept stays the same, including the free zones. Second are qualifying activities within the free zone, and I will shortly read it to you because this is the exact description of qualifying activities from the website of the Federal Tax Office. And also exempted activities within the free zones. These two are very different. Number one, manufacturing of goods and materials. Number two, processing of any goods and materials. 3, holding of shares and any securities, as we mentioned before. 4, ownership, management and operation of ships, reinsurance services, management of related fund services, wealth and investment management, headquarter services, financing services, treasury services, distribution of goods and materials, and certain logistics services. So this is the list of services or activities that are exempt from corporate taxation. But this is a general list, and we must study case by case depending on each free zone, because there might be free zones that have other activities exempt or that have some changes to these general rules. So in every case, we need to study the case individually. Now I will read you the list of the excluded activities under the corporate tax law, also from the website of the Federal Tax Authority. So these are very similar like in qualifying activities. It's banking, insurance, finance services, leasing activities, ownership and exploitation of immovable properties, so real estate, excluding the commercial properties situated in the free zone, and ownership and exploitation, for example, sale or rental of any intellectual property. So if you have an IP company getting royalties or selling the qualified IP, this can be also exempt from taxes. So these were the basic exemptions related to free zone companies. And now the big question is, what is happening to offshore companies? Well, we don't know yet. The Federal Tax Authority still, until now, and we're recording this video in June 2024, they still did not issue any kind of guidelines related to taxation of offshore companies. So as you can see, there are plenty of businesses that are exempt and plenty of activities that are exempt from corporation tax. Now, let's make a quick summary of who is liable to corporation tax of 9%. So, mainland companies having the income exceeding 375,000 dirhams per year. This relates to practically all the activities except the activities related to holding companies. So, if you have a mainland LLC and you provide services or you sell goods, you are paying 9% of corporation tax rate. Individual entrepreneurs that are exceeding the threshold of 1 million dirham also should pay corporation tax. And when I mention should pay corporation tax, this is payable on the difference. So when we reach a threshold of 1 million in terms of individual entrepreneurship, or 375,000 dirhams in terms of LLC, we only tax the income after you reach the threshold. We don't tax the global income of the company. Also, free zone companies, if any of the free zone company performs an activity different than falls under the qualifying activities or exempt activities, then we should pay corporation tax. And in the free zones, we don't have the thresholds regarding the taxation like in the mainland, for example, or like on the level of the individual entrepreneurship. So free zone companies, for example, providing services should pay 9% of tax, and we cannot avoid this. So in regards to the offshore companies, as I mentioned, we are still uncertain how to tax them because the tax office didn't issue any guidelines or rulings related to offshore companies. And we'll be sharing updates with you definitely via newsletters. Maybe we'll record a separate video about offshore companies. You'll be definitely informed. However, we should have in mind that offshore companies who will have permanent establishment in UAE, who will have place of effective management, and who will meet the general criteria of a taxable activity, like having a branch in UAE, this will probably fall under the regime of corporation tax. But let's see, it remains to be seen. So follow us on YouTube or subscribe to our newsletter and you'll be informed accordingly. Now let's go to the bright side of the corporation tax. Some people say, oh, it's not good that UAE introduced tax, we should move out, this and that. Well, from practice, from seeing our clients, partners, and from asking, hundreds of people that live here and that do business here, nobody is moving out. UAE is providing such a great business environment and infrastructure that even 9% of tax related to only certain activities is not scaring anyone. It's still one of the lowest rates in the whole world, and I don't think anyone coming from Scandinavia or Germany or UK would mind to pay this 9% on profits. But why is it good that UAE introduced a corporate income tax? It's very good because now we can use the benefits of double tax treaties. Before, we couldn't do that because there was no tax payable. Many companies could not receive tax residency certificates. At the moment, even offshore companies, since they will be paying tax, even the free zone companies, since some of them will be paying tax, can receive tax residency certificate and can claim different reliefs and use the benefits of double tax treaties, and this is extremely important. One more thing, reputation. So now, since UAE was removed from the grey list and since it's fully cooperating, since it's introduced taxation and it has double tax treaties and it has agreements for exchanges of tax information, it is a fully compliant jurisdiction, which makes it much higher in terms of reputation and perception as a place for doing business. So introducing corporate tax globally was a good idea for UAE, not mentioning the money inflow that actually the businesses will contribute to the economy and its growth. I have mentioned tax residency certificate. So this certificate is a document that actually proves that the company is residing for tax purposes in the UAE. And this is a very important document because it can help foreign owners, for example, shareholders being located in high tax jurisdictions like Germany, Poland, Sweden, Russia, etc., from paying taxation in their countries. And also, this is a document that will help you to use the double tax treaty benefits. Now you will ask, how can I get the tax residency certificate? It's very easy. You need to submit the audited financial statements, you need to prove the business activity within UAE, and you need to prove that you have an office here. Sometimes the authorities are also requiring UAE bank statements, and before introducing the corporate tax in UAE, it was practically impossible for majority of the companies to receive the tax residency certificate because they didn't meet enough of substance requirements. But now, even if we disregard the substance requirements, since the company is paying tax in UAE, most likely it will be perceived as a tax resident. So actually introducing the taxation will help practically all the companies will make it easier for all the companies to receive the tax residency certificate. So to summarize, corporate income tax in UAE is very low, it's only 9%. It only relates to certain activities and it's not a bad thing that it was introduced, as we mentioned, because of many other factors like using treaty benefits, getting TRCs, contribution to the global economy within UAE, etc., etc., etc. So let's close the topic of corporation tax. Now let's go to the topic of withholding taxes, because this is also a question that we get. Since UAE introduced corporate income tax, did it also introduce withholding taxes on dividends, royalties, interest, etc.? The answer is very simple. No, there is no withholding tax whatsoever within UAE. Both relates to incoming and outgoing income. For example, when the UAE company is paying dividend, disregarding where the shareholder is located, there is no withholding tax on dividend in UAE. So it's always zero, and let's hope it remains like this. So to summarize, there is no withholding tax, nothing changed. It's still zero. We have mentioned corporate income tax, we have mentioned withholding taxes. Now let's go to the final tax that we are going to describe, which is VAT, value added tax. You don't have to worry because it's not applicable to every business. So VAT was introduced in UAE a couple of years ago. It's only 5%. Yes, it's only 5%. And the VAT legislation in UAE follows practically the same rules as the VAT in European Union. So if you are providing services or doing business within UAE, for example, you have a shop, you sell some gadgets, or you have a corporate services firm like we have, and you provide services to local people. On these services or goods that are sold to local people or local entities, you have to charge 5% of VAT. This is unavoidable. However, if your business provides services or sells goods outside United Arab Emirates, then we don't charge VAT. This is it. The rule is very simple. So actually the fact that VAT was imposed in UAE doesn't affect most of the businesses and doesn't affect expats doing business here internationally. As you know, UAE is a hub for expats and for various investment firms, trading companies, etc., and most of them are doing business with countries abroad. So one more time, the VAT is almost not affecting anything within UAE. It's only affecting the businesses that are handled locally to the local receivers, and on this we pay only 5%. And if you ask me, 5% is very little for VAT. It's probably the lowest VAT rate in the whole world, because usually the VAT is about 20, 25, 30% in EU and in other countries. So again, the fact that UAE imposed VAT doesn't really affect international businessmen. The last challenge I would like to describe is importance of substance in the jurisdiction of the UAE. So this is very important, especially for the clients or shareholders that are living abroad in such countries like Russia, Sweden, Germany, Poland, etc., where the tax offices are having quite sophisticated knowledge and, well, they like to penalize people for having certain tax avoidance structures. So in order to minimize that, we should make sure that there is enough of substance in the UAE. We should take care, first of all, about not having the permanent establishment abroad. So when we have a UAE company, we should make sure that we have a local director that is residing in UAE, that is taking decisions from UAE. We should make sure that there is an office here. Not only a registered office address, but an actual rented office. And we should make sure there are plenty of other elements that show that we are performing real economic activity from UAE. And the same concept applies to the residency of the company. In UAE, by default, the company is a resident for tax purposes when it's incorporated in UAE. We also follow the place of effective management principle. However, on the international level, when we have an inspection in double tax treaties, it's usually the management and control principle or place of effective management principle, which means that we have to prove to the foreign tax office that the company is really managed, controlled, operated, and does business from UAE. So we should make sure we have enough of substance in place. And of course, banking, as I mentioned. Nowadays, banks require rental agreements, employment agreements, websites, etc. So it's very important to have relevant substance. Lastly, if we are shareholders of the UAE company from a high tax jurisdiction that has, for example, CFC rules or general anti-avoidance rules, we should make sure we have enough of substance so we can prove to the foreign tax office that the entity here within UAE is performing real economic activity and is just not a shell company trying to avoid taxes. So to summarize, as you saw, United Arab Emirates has one of the lowest tax rates in the world. In most of the cases, we have no corporation tax at all, no withholding taxes and no VAT. And even if we are having corporate tax exposure on the taxable activities, it's only 9%. Only 9%, guys. It's one of the lowest, if not the lowest, corporate income tax rate in the whole world. So this is the incentive for you. Come to UAE, come to Dubai, do business here, because not only it's a great place to do business, not only it has great infrastructure, but it has very low taxes. So thank you very much. For more information, please feel free to see our YouTube channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and come to Dubai.